Okay, so unlike everyone, well, similar to Jess, I didn't do field work, and I also didn't go very far from home. I live in Western Mass. I got an internship at Mount Holyoke College in their art museum, which for me is about a 45-minute drive depending on traffic. But I was working as a NAGPRA intern. A little bit of an overview. So I was in the art museum. Mount Holyoke's NAGPRA coordinator, as his title is a guy called Aaron Miller. I also was working with his assistant, Allison Logan. But a little bit about how I know these people. Aaron is actually a friend of a friend back home. So I was very lucky to have that connection and be able to reach out to him. I believe this past January, and he was kind enough to grant me the space to come in and help him on a NAGPRA internship basis. So NAGPRA, if you don't know, Native American Graves, Protection, and Repatriation Act. The timing worked out very well, where pretty much I'd say a week after I started this internship, right after school ended, we had a claim come in from the Flandreau Sante Sioux tribe for 11 different items, and all of these items came from the Joseph Allen Skinner Museum. So a little bit of background about this is Mount Holyoke technically owns the Joseph Allen Skinner Museum. That was donated in the mid-1900s to them from Joseph Allen Skinner's family after he passed away. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, he pretty much went all over the US and just collected anything he wanted. So here's a little bit about the actual NAGPRA internship, but this is at least the header of the claim that we got to the museum. As you can see, it was sent in on May 30th. But just to give you a little info about this, pretty much how it works is we received this claim. The items were broken down into two separate NAGPRA ideas, but we received this and then went through the archives of the Joseph Allen Skinner Museum and collected the 11 different objects, which you can see here. Oh, well, this is we'll go back. But the claim came in May 30th, and we pretty much started working right on it because it is a very long process to get it all going. So a bit about the Flandreau Sante Sioux community. They are based in South Dakota area, but they obviously span all over. So this is, if you look it up on the internet, this is the dot that they'll give you right by the Sioux Falls area. But then through my research that I was doing, a large part of it connected to the Pipestone National Monument. That is where, as you will see, the pipes that we were repatriating pretty much were all based out of that area. But a little bit of why I zoomed in also is you can kind of start to see where their name comes from. We have the Flandreau up there, Sioux Falls, and then obviously the Pipestone, all in a little triangle. So getting into some of the artifacts. I would say this group is the group I worked with the most. The Capillanite pipes and the pipe stems. They were all listed under sacred objects for NAGPRA. But as you can see, some very plain carvings, some more interesting, but pretty much the work I was doing was, for NAGPRA, you have to research and basically, in a way, prove that there are connections of the artifacts to the community that is asking for them to be repatriated. So most of my days were spent sitting at a desk, doing research, and just pretty much from the map, all of the stone, we were able to connect back to that Pipestone National Monument area, which was really good for the repatriation work, and it made it go a lot more smoothly. Here are some of the artifacts that I did not work as much with. So there's a jacket, gauntlets, and then a quiver and bow case. These were all listed under cultural patrimony for NAGPRA, and Aaron and Allison were in charge of the research for these ones. But luckily, through this whole process, I learned that Mount Holyoke is really great about repatriation, and they make it, at least on the side of the logistics with Mount Holyoke, make it very easy. You pretty much go, we're like, we have all this research, we really believe like this claim is accurate, we want to publish it to the NAGPRA, to the Federal Registrar, and Mount Holyoke pretty much goes, great, we're all for it, do what you think you need to do. So that made this a lot easier. So, some of what I learned is the process of a NAGPRA claim and how to write up a NAGPRA proposal. The process, as I said, the claim comes in, breaking it down very simply, you do a bunch of research, and then we do a write-up of a NAGPRA proposal, which you'll see in the next slide. This then goes to the Federal Registrar. It's posted for about 3 months. In that time, a different tribe, organization, whoever can make like a counterclaim basically and be like, no, actually, we really think that's our stuff, which then creates a whole other process and a whole other proposal that you have to write. But for this, I was just writing the first proposal, which is all the research. Some other stuff I learned, how to use collection databases. This is one of the examples. This is the public one that you can find. It's a great resource if you're ever just like wanting to bob around and find some artifacts. I highly recommend. This is 5 colleges and historic Deerfield. As you can see, the drop-down menu, it lists a bunch of them. Mount Holyoke has 2 separate, it has their art museum, and then also the Skinner Museum, because those are 2 very separate places for them. But I spent a lot of time going through these databases and trying to find any other like similar artifacts that we could use to base the claim off of. I also use, there's a private one that Mount Holyoke has called MIMSI, which is I used to do some more research and cataloging of some lithics that they had. But yeah, so besides that, I also did, in my spare time when I wasn't researching, I cataloged some lithics that they just had in this random drawer, of course, in the Skinner Museum. But I cataloged that for them to go up on the MIMSI website to make it easier for the students to find anything that might help their research as well. And finally, this was the final product, or at least the first page of it that I can show you, because right now they're still finishing up the last bit of it. But this is our repatriation proposal. As you see, it has Aaron, Allison, and me listed, but this is like a big quote for them. You guys can read it if you want, it's a little long, but pretty much it's just saying that, you know, this is the right thing to do. Universities should be repatriating their work and putting a lot of work into it. But right now we're finishing this. Allison just actually posted a comment yesterday that it is pretty much ready to be given to the Federal Registrar to be posted. And then that'll take the 3 months, and then hopefully there's no counterclaims. And then the work can begin of actually sending back these 11 objects that are at Mount Holyoke. But yeah, I spent a lot of time at a desk. That's pretty much the base of it. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, so my question is about your experience in not the artifacts that you worked with, but the leather and cloth and textile set of artifacts.
Yeah.
Those presumably did not come from an archaeological context,
No.
so do you know anything about the way that they actually came into the collection, or is it completely opaque in terms of all of it, how it actually came to this person who then donated it?
Yeah, from what we know, Alfred Skinner really just traveled the country and took whatever he wanted. So there isn't a lot of description of those objects. There's not a lot of description of any of the objects really. But from what we know, he pretty much just, would go up to someone and, try to buy it off them, take it from them, however he wanted to go about it, which has made some of the previous repatriation also really difficult because it's hard to trace all of that back to like the actual area it is from.
Do you know whether it was possible by the sort of art historical study of them to determine what period they were made? I mean, were they sort of contemporary with him? He bought this, it had been recently made, and I'm just sort of wondering if it was like made for tourists or if they really were intended for use by the tribe.
From what I know, talking with Aaron about his work, it sounds like they were supposed to be for the tribe. There was things there that Aaron was pretty much like, I want to repatriate this because I know it's really not supposed to be here. And there was just problems with, the whole not knowing where it is from. But from what I know, from his research, I would say it was not meant for tourists and it was an actual tribal artifact.
Cool.
Yeah. Sophia,